Listen to the warrior mom who says, I will do whatever needs to be done to help my son over the autistic spectrum disorder he is experiencing. What the warrior mom learned through research was the stomach brain, sometimes referred to as gut brain interconnect. Listen carefully to what she has discovered and the nutrition that affects our brain. Hi there, and thank you for joining us on the Overcomers Overcoming podcast. We feature those who are in the process of overcoming or have overcome any type of life encounter, life obstacle that at the time seemed to be almost insurmountable. With this podcast, we have three objectives in mind. Our first objective is we want you to know with a confident resolve you are not alone. We want to work with you. We want you to know there are others who are working with you, who want to help you through whatever you are encountering, and together we will get through whatever you're experiencing.
Our second objective is there are multiple options for any life encounter you are facing. We want to help you develop a resolve that there are various options and solutions to any life dilemma.
Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If you're encountering something that was possibly a decision you made sometime in the past, and if you had the opportunity for a life redo, you would make a different decision. We want to help you with those critical thinking skills that can help you make an informed decision and not encounter what you're going through at the moment. We are the Cooper Culture, a veteran-owned business. We work with business personnel and families to develop and sustain connected relationship cultures within their families and organizations. That type organization is one where people feel wanted, appreciated, and genuinely a part of that organization. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty, who is helping me facilitate this podcast. Today we feature Tracy Slepcevic, who recounts for us how she worked through the research she did working with her son, Noah, who she discovered over a period of time was experiencing the autistic spectrum disorder. Through this, she learned the nutritional values that sometimes are toxins to our body, and through those toxins, we are genetically disposed in some cases to incurring various disorders in the body. She has done some fabulous research and she wrote the book, Warrior Mom. Marty, what are some takeaways we can learn from Tracy?
Tracy just has a wealth of knowledge and information for those that have a special child, a special person that needs the gut and the brain to work together and be healthy. I'm looking forward to reading her book. I would say, Tracy would say, we all need to eat healthy for our gut and our brain.
And it is applicable to everybody, meaning the nutrition we intake affects every part of our body. Let's listen and learn together. Tracy, it's great to have you with us. You are a mother of an autistic son, and you have done pretty much almost a lifetime of raising to help your son and maybe yourself, our listeners. I use the term adapt to, and for our listeners, I am not a trained therapist. I have worked with, but I am learning with every conversation. I just have a sense it is us learning through your awareness that we can identify without labeling, and then we adapt to. Tracy, welcome aboard. It's going to be great to learn from you.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Tracy, can you start us off just a little bit of your son? And we're not here to dwell on the past, but to learn from the past and from your life experience, how do we adapt to and maybe implement a holistic approach to those who are autistic and just learn to work with them? And if I use terms that are not appropriate, please correct me.
It's okay. It's all good. There is no right or wrong, right? It's just what really works. And that's why I wrote my book, Warrior Mom, A Mother's Journey in Healing Her Son with Autism. And I do not say cured or, changed. Healing by really addressing the underlying conditions so I could get him to a functioning state, which he is today. And I have a lot of those questions in there that people ask themselves. What is autism really? A little bit about my story of trials and tribulations and what a lot of parents deal with schools, with teachers, with doctors. It's, there was a really good reason why I called the book Warrior Mom.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let me ask you very quickly, Tracy, for our listeners, how old is your son?
He'll be 19 in a couple weeks.
All right. I want to ask you just very quickly, is he employable? Is he, I'm going to use the term marryable. Is he capable of living on his own?
Well, me and my husband travel a lot for work, and he takes care of the house and the dogs. And he goes to college, he drives, he does everything that a fully functioning adult can do. Is he a little bit needy and entitled? I don't know if that's just the today's thing, but yes, he is.
Okay.
So, but he's doing great. But if it wasn't for a lot of intervention, that I call it, I don't think he would be where he is today.
Great. I'm going to interpret what you just said is I'm going to use the term a little bit of not yet, meaning maybe not yet ready to live on his own and so forth, but imminently he will be because of you and your husband being very effective in raising your son. Have I mischaracterized anything?
No, not at all.
Great. Tracy, can you take us through maybe what was the earliest diagnosis? Were you aware? Did your son have an official diagnostics, or where are we with that? And then how did you maybe emotionally adapt to that? And then maybe through training, parenting, how did you work with that? That's a very, very broad, all-encompassing question.
Right? So to be honest with you, my son regressed starting around 12 months old, where he lost most of his motor skills, cognitive function, and all of his speech. And from there, it took me 2.5 years to figure out what was wrong with him, because all I had was a pediatrician who kept saying everything was normal and didn't really want to spend more than 3 minutes with me. So beyond that, I kept asking questions. I did take them to Harbor Regional Center for an evaluation where they lost my paperwork. I had 2 preschools tell me my kid had special needs and they couldn't care for him. So by the time that 2.5 years came along, I was ready to put my head through a wall. And that was a huge reason why I wrote the book. In there in part 2, it's like, what do you do if you even think that your child might have autism? And so the first part is my story, but the second part is really like a guidebook, the different treatments and therapies and where to go for an evaluation, what to do prior to age 3, where you can go after age 3, what are their state resources, all those different things. And then part 3 of my book is all about intervention, biomedical intervention, which is addressing underlying conditions associated with autism, which really, when you address gut issues, because the gut is directly connected to the brain via the nervous system, a lot of times they can regain speech, functionality, so many different things. So at right around 3 was when I asked my pediatrician, is it possible that my son could have autism? And she just looked at him for a second and said, no, he's fine. He just needs speech. So that was her quick so-called diagnosis. But I am here to tell people, pediatricians cannot by any means, they are not trained to diagnose children with autism at all. Neither are therapists. You have to take them to a clinical psychologist. So what I ended up doing, because the Harbor Regional Center lost my paperwork, and it was a really crappy evaluation, that I actually went through the school district, and they have a child psychologist, and we had a speech pathologist, a special education teacher, physical therapist. There were 5 women, and they were amazing. And the evaluation was about 3 hours long. It was good because they took Noah, they evaluated all of his different skills, and then we sat with the child psychologist and asked all these questions. And when they were done, they met for like 20 minutes, and they came back in, and then they said, "I'm sorry to tell you, but we do find that Noah is autistic-like." Now they use the word "like" because a school district cannot formally diagnose autism. So I did take that report back to the regional center where Noah was formally diagnosed by a clinical psychologist. Now, at this point, Noah is 3.5 years old. And I'm here to tell you, parents, early intervention is key, early. And I do mean, like, if you can catch it at 2, it's the best way. So I always say God sends me angels. And I have a beautiful story of all these beautiful angels that came into my life to direct me on my path. But one of them was my naturopathic doctor, and his office was adjacent to ours. And the day they told me Noah had autism, I had to run back to the office, and I saw Dr. Brooke in the hallway, and he saw me crying, and he reached out and gave me a hug. And he asked what was wrong, and I told him Noah was just diagnosed with autism. And he backed up for a second, and he looked me in the eyes, and he said, "Noah will be okay. I want you to go home, and I want you to do your research, because kids with autism are making great strides with biomedical intervention." Now, I had no idea what biomedical intervention was. None. I always like to do things more holistically and take that approach, but I had no idea. So I literally sucked the tears back up into my eyes, went home, and just started doing my research. This was January of 2009. And I became the biggest research junkie. I was reading book after book, going to conferences, going to tea talks, parent meetings, whatever information, just like you said, I'm an information junkie, and whatever I could absorb or learn that was going to benefit my son, I did it. But number one, people always ask me, they're like, "Well, what was the number one thing that you did that benefited your child?" The number one thing I did was on that day that I spoke to Dr. Burka, is I set a clear intention that my son was going to live a normal functioning life. And he does. He is now almost 19 years old in a few weeks. He drives, he goes to college. He is fully functioning. He could stay at home and take care of the house and the dogs and, cook for himself. And he's a little entitled and spoiled, but both my kids are. And it was a lot of work. And I tell you, diet was key. Healing the gut heals the brain. And then I went back to school for alternative medicine. I learned so many different alternative ways to heal my child, and my whole life became about healing others. So, and it isn't just our children. A lot of underlying conditions that our children with autism have are underlying conditions that we have. So when I put Noah on this diet and intervention and supplements, all kinds of stuff, I did the same thing for myself. And I was suffering from severe fibromyalgia, joint pain, chronic migraines, and a lot of these things went away. There were times where I could barely get out of bed. So I did the exact same protocol as my son, because I wasn't going to make him do something that I wasn't going to do myself. And lo and behold, we both just started healing our bodies. And, it took some time with Noah. He does have a very weak immune system. He has a lot of pre-genetic conditions like MTHFR, mitochondrial dysfunction, a lot of those things that inhibit the body's ability to detox. That's just easier, way to explain it. So like, and they're raining environmental toxins into our life, the list is long. But the best way to do it is to, clean up your home, clean up your environment, organic. Not like don't drive yourself crazy over it, because you can, but to really just clean up their diets and their environment. And we're people out there, they're just eating processed food and garbage, and it's not helping these kids neurologically or adults. Obesity is on the rise. There's so much that goes into it, which is why I wrote the book. It's like everything that I could have shoved into a small little book, I did was like a story of hope and inspiration, and a guidebook as well. So to me, that was, because you don't make anything off royalties, just so you know. I probably put more into it than I've gotten out. Well, I definitely put more into it than I've gotten out. But you know what? I've changed lives. And I believe that living your purpose and being in service to others is the number one thing that people can do today. Because my son is doing well. So now my goal is to help other parents and other children so they don't bang their head up against the wall and not knowing what to do.
Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate everything you said. Many questions come to mind. Let me take them one at a time. Do I understand correctly? Noah was born nonverbal and remained that way for maybe 3 years?
No, my son was not born nonverbal. My son had full speech, full motor skills, and reached all his milestones at age 1. And
I'm
then,
sorry, I misunderstood. I thought at some point that did he become nonverbal?
yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever known of that a person uh, was speaking and then became nonverbal and then overcame that. I'm sorry, Tracy. I've never even known that to happen.
There's thousands of cases. So it's a little controversial. And if I speak it, you definitely won't be able to, post it on certain platforms. So I'll leave it alone. But he went in for his 1-year well baby visit and became very sick. And beyond that, he lost his speech, the motor skills, and his cognitive function. But before that, he had all his baby words. He walked early, he crawled early, he did everything early. And he was a fully functioning child before that time.
Oh my goodness. Now, I want to make sure I understand what you said, and certainly correct me if I'm not listening to you correctly. But it's through diet, environment, and so forth that Noah overcame or is dealing with, whatever the correct term, his autistic nature. Am I hearing you correctly?
So this is how I put it. You can be born with a genetic predisposition, but it's going to be environmental factors that trigger it. Autism, ADD, ADHD, any neurological disorder, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, all of it. It's going to be environmental factors that trigger it. And there's a laundry list. So a couple genetic predispositions that I mentioned before. Noah has MTHFR, which means he doesn't methylate properly, and which means he doesn't get rid of toxins as well. So you shove a bunch of toxins into his body, he's not going to be able to get rid of those. And mitochondrial dysfunction. There's a lot of mitochondrial dysfunction. And so that's a genetic predisposition as well that weakens the immune system as to where they're not able to fight off, a lot of things. And very much so, Noah and I are a lot alike genetically with our immune system. So, there's so much in the environment. I'm not going to go into detail because a lot of it is controversial, but we can talk about there's genetically modified foods, there's toxins in our environment, the pesticides, the glyphosate, the aluminum, the all of it. Our kids are overwhelmed with it. They are, it's a poisonous environment.
All right, I want to make sure I'm assimilating everything correctly as well. Noah was born autistic and the various things you just mentioned. Nope.
My son so I don't believe in it by any means that a child is born autistic. They are born with pre-genetic conditions, and those environmental factors can trigger those conditions as to where they develop autism.
Oh.
So my son didn't develop autism until after his 1 year well baby visit. You could put 2 and 2 together, but I won't say it.
Thank you for that help. Again, I'm learning with every conversation.
You're good.
I assumed people are born the way they are, but Noah became. Am I using the correct terms?
Yeah. It's like somebody saying you're born with cancer when you have cancer. You're not born with cancer, you develop cancer. So it's the same thing. I don't believe that children are born with autism. They're born with the pre-genetic conditions, and it's environmental factors. And there's a laundry list of them that trigger it as to where they develop it. Yes.
Now, your other child, autistic or not?
So Caitlin was diagnosed with ADHD. She's 4 years older than Noah, but she's fully functioning. She just has trouble focusing. But through holistic approaches, she does really well as too. So
Okay, great. So Caitlin has some pre-genetic or some genetic conditions. Noah had his own, and through years and years of research, you and your husband have learned how to, okay, I'm going to use the term cope with, overcome, adapt to, and please help me with the most appropriate term.
So I personally, this is just me, don't feel like I adapted to anything. I fought hard, long and hard, because to get my son to the place that he is today, you don't get there by just sitting there and accepting what is. So I can get torn apart for saying I accept, my son, however he is. I love him. He's amazing. But if I did not do the work that I did and fight the fight that I did, my son probably would not be functioning the way he is. And thousands of parents have my journey. Thousands of parents have that regression after that 1 year well baby visit. So it's not just me. But no, I didn't accept anything. I didn't accept my son's fate when doctors told me he would never fully function. He would never be able to live on his own. He would never be able to do anything that the normal functioning individual does. And I did not listen to that. I let all of that roll off my back the day that Dr. Burka told me that my kid would be fine. I just needed to do my research, and I needed to do some intervention that's a little out of the normal scope of practice. The diet, the supplements, the all kinds of stuff. I did hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I did stem cell therapy. I did all kinds of stuff for my son.
And I am not in any way refuting anything you're saying, Tracy. I just, by my perspective, I use the term adapt to. You did that through learning research. You learned about Noah's, let's say, medical conditions. And it's through that, after having learned you applied, I'll use a different term, you applied everything you learned, and Noah responded well to that. And now you're passing forward everything you've learned through your research and life experience with Noah. And please use different terms. Correct me if that's not the way you would state it.
No, that's 100%. You're right on. I mean, I believe that Noah was brought into my life for a reason. God doesn't make mistakes. I believe along the way, he did send me some angels to guide me in the right direction. And I believe that my journey and writing the book and speaking all around the US, that is my purpose. And my purpose is to be in service. It's to heal those that who are struggling. But the number one thing is to give parents and family members inspiration and hope that possibilities are endless. So I created a conference called the Autism Health Summit, and we talk about addressing those underlying conditions. We talk about genetics and neurological disorders. We talk about proper diets, but it's solution-based. It's all about solutions. It's not about dwelling on the past or anything that's happened or the government and how they rain toxins all over us. It isn't. It's about creating solutions.
Thank you. Well, Marty and I sincerely appreciate everything you're saying. I will tell you and our listeners up front, Marty and I are faith-based, and we do believe that God allows things to happen because you can endure, you will work through, and people will benefit from everything God has allowed you to go through. That is our perspective. Let me ask you, early intervention. Early diagnosis is key. And can you take us through some of the maybe earliest awareness aspects that, yep, my child might be autistic? What are some of those symptoms of which we need to be aware?
So speech is typically one of those, right up there at the top in regards to signs. Eye contact, motor skills, stimming. Stimming can look so many different ways. A lot of times they might flap their arms, they might spin in circles. Noah used to like to stare at things that went round. So everything that went round. And a lot of these kids do, instead of playing with the car, they'll flip it over and they'll like spin the wheels. Noah used to stare at a fan. I could put him in front of a fan and I didn't need a TV. He would just stare at the fan for hours. And that's a form of stimming. So there's all kinds. Rocking is a form of stimming. Even, believe it or not, twirling your hair is a form of stimming. Anything that is soothing to them. And I don't ever recommend that people try to intervene and stop them from stimming, because this is a comfort thing. They're comfortable doing that. So yes, Noah started doing a lot of stimming. They say part of stimming is also toe walking, and sleep. Sleep is huge. If they're not sleeping, they have a messed up gut. If they're playing in their poop, they have a messed up gut. A lot of this is very much gut related. I'm telling you, when you heal the gut, you heal the brain 100%. Every child will respond differently. Will they regain their speech? Not every child will. Will they regain their motor skills from certain intervention? Not every child will. It's really, it goes deeper than that. But are there benefits to healing the gut, healing the body? 100%. And that's really what I talk about, because there are no contraindications to following a more functional or holistic approach to healing underlying conditions. And that's not just for those with autism. That's all of us. We all have some sort of underlying conditions. If you go to the doctors and you get a laundry list of blood work, something's going on. I have yet to see anybody, and I'm a health practitioner, I've yet to see anybody who has like beautiful blood work. I don't, not even myself. So it's, you know, there's so much they can do, but it begins with, you know, diet, supplementation, keeping out, you know, gluten, dairy, soy, those are inflammatory foods. So are a lot of grains. Sugar is 100% inflammatory. Different dyes, especially red dye is a red 40, that causes behaviors. If they need to be checked for strep, which is PANDAS, they call it PANDAS, pediatric autoimmune neuropsychotropic disorder associated with streptococcus. And there is no age limit on that. It, like those with Tourette's, tics, behavioral disorders, most of them have high levels of strep, and that causes major inflammation on the brain and can be life-threatening. So these are all the things that functional medicine is doing, but yet Western medicine is not taking it on, because they want us to be sick so they can just prescribe, you know, for what ails by putting a Band-Aid on it. I'm ripping the Band-Aid off. You have to find that underlying condition, because the more medications you put these kids on, so Adderall, that's going to lead to depression. And then you got to put them on medication for depression. And then that in teenage years leads to high levels of suicide. I don't know the exact percentage, but it's pretty high, somewhere around 80% of those who commit teenage suicide have been put on ADHD medication, which is like one little component off from crack cocaine. So, and a lot of times they're being misdiagnosed. You have a pediatrician who's saying, oh, they have ADHD, still not educated to diagnose with ADHD. Then they put them on a stimulant. What if they have anxiety? So I had one kid who is my great nephew who is living with his grandma, and she had him put on ADHD medication. And really what he was having was anxiety. So you're given a stimulant to somebody with anxiety. So it's like literally the kid's heart was going to explode. So he wound up in the hospital. So these are things that doctors are being careless and not paying attention to, is let me just work for the pharmaceutical companies and just prescribe. And, you know, it's never, unless you find out what's going on underneath, you cannot solve the issue.
Here's what I'm interpreting you're saying, and again, correct me if I'm wrong. In the context of awareness, you very eloquently describe some symptoms. Beyond that, you need a clinical analysis of what's happening in the body. Again, I may not be using your terms, but once you have determined that, there is a gut-brain interconnect, that what you eat is going to affect your brain. You might need to adjust. You may need to customize what you eat to have a healthier lifestyle. And again, Tracy, if I'm not processing what you're saying correctly, let me know, because I have not read your book. Our listeners, Warrior Mom, need to read your book. You've sounds like you've assimilated all of the research there, but am I even a little bit correct in assimilating what you're saying?
Absolutely. You are 100%. I mean, our nervous system is connected from our brain to our gut. So when there's inflammation going on in the gut or even the intestines, then what happens? So I want you to think of, so your intestinal walls are lined with these epithelial cells. And they're like these little cells, and there's very tight junctures, right? So what these epithelial cells do is they pull in like proteins and vitamins and nutrients and all the good stuff. And then it gets rid of the rest as waste, right? Pushes the rest out as waste. So what happens is when you have inflammation or you have a toxic environment, like if they're eating just food with pesticides, so they're exposed to glyphosate. Well, glyphosate's in everything. It's in your furniture, your clothes, your air, your water. So what it'll do in gluten and dairy and all those things will start to deaden those epithelial cells, and it creates these junctions, right? So then there's gaps into the bloodstream. So then that's called leaky gut. When you have leaky gut, you have like dark circles around the eyes. You'll have a white film on the tongue. It's very a distended belly if their bellies are, sticking out. All those things, gassy, bloated, not sleeping, playing in their poop. All those are signs of leaky gut. And what happens is all that garbage that's supposed to be pushed out of the body is actually leaking into the bloodstream and wreaking havoc on the brain. And then we also have to think we have all these environmental toxins, heavy metals floating around our body, right? And then you give a kid Tylenol if he has a fever, and it opens up the blood-brain barrier. So there's no protection. If you put a cell phone to your ear, it opens up the blood-brain barrier. If you put little wireless headphones in your ears, it opens up the blood-brain barrier. So all of those protection mechanisms that God put in our bodies are being broken down by technology, by big corporate greed, all of it. And what we have to do is we have to trust our God-given immunity to keep us strong and healthy. Because God doesn't make mistakes. He didn't make mistakes when he designed this body. He made this body strong enough if you are eating the right foods and doing the right things. He made it strong enough to be self-healing. Okay? So when you do your best to eliminate the toxins in your environment, then the best thing that you can do is to just nourish your body, to feed your body like healthy organic foods. They have EWG.org has like a dirty dozen list and a clean 15. So the dirty dozen is like that they contain the highest levels of pesticides. And then there's the in-between that they don't name. And then there's the clean 15. The clean 15 is like you can buy it non-organic. It really doesn't absorb pesticides. You just have to wash it. So those are things that we can do. Be careful what you cook in. Even though it's got that nice aluminum cap at the bottom that keeps even heat, stainless steel is porous. So as soon as you heat it up, it opens up, aluminum comes in, goes into your food, enters your body. So non-stick cookware is by far 100% the worst. You don't ever. It's full of PFOAs, PFOSs. It's full of all kinds of toxic chemicals. It's banned in most countries, just so you know. There's so much out there. That's why I put there's a little part in my book, how to remove the environmental toxins from your home. Make sure that you don't, anything that has a scent. So if you spray air freshener or you have those plugins or even your perfumes, those are considered volatile organic compounds. So even that beautiful new car smell, that's a volatile organic compound. So what it does is it creates oxidative stress in the body, which breaks down the immune system and inhibits the body's ability to self-heal. So there's a laundry list, and I know I could sit here forever and you'll have her just spinning. But the best thing to do is to really just start small. I mean, and just remove, those cleaners and all those things that are bad, that do contain volatile organic compounds. EWG.org is a great website for information. And supplementation is important because unfortunately our soil is nutrient depleted and our foods are picked too early. So we don't get those nutrients even in our fruits and vegetables that are organic. So we have to supplement. Vitamin D is the most important supplement that everybody should be taking from newborn on up. I mean, there's a laundry list of supplementation too that's important.
Golly, I appreciate everything you're saying. And now you've mentioned the term, I think it's twice, controversial. I will tell you, Marty and me together, we wholeheartedly advocate, we call it holistic approaches, to where we're not medicinally trying to resolve different things. It is my perception, some prescribe medication that, well, if that didn't work, just keep adding and keep going after medication after stuff. I believe that God created us in a way to function best. And once we learn how to do that, I'm going to believe, Tracy, you have enough empirical evidence to say what you have researched, the approach you take, has some scientific backing, or at least empirical backing, and you can prove it has worked for you. Is that at least somewhat correct?
Yes. I always say a really good book to read, other than my own, it's called Turtles All the Way Down. And the authors are unknown. So, but it's got like a white cover with like blue, and it'll explain everything that I'm trying to say, but can't really say. But it's a really good book. And I explain a little bit of it in my book, but I do my best to stay positive and focused in my book, and really just give parents solutions, and not so much focus on the doom and gloom, because there's so much of it in the world. I want people to put their faith and their trust in God, and not Western medicine or the pharmaceutical companies. I tell parents, if you feel something is wrong with your child, something is wrong with your child, because our intuition, our inner knowing, our gut feelings, all of that is God speaking to you. And you can take it at face value, you cannot, but I'll tell you, so many times it's served me well. Those little voices in my belly or in my mind or in my brain or whatever have served me well. And God has always guided me, no matter how tough the road. And it's tough. It is tough. I'm a warrior mom in so many ways. And to more than just my own children. And there's so much out there. There is, the rate of ADD, ADHD, chronic childhood diseases and illnesses, mental illness, addiction, all of it is on the rise. My very dear nephew, who I helped raise from the time he was a young boy, took his life 2 weeks ago. And he suffered severely from mental illness and addiction. And there wasn't enough love to fix him. But I'm here to say, and I can happily say, that tough love doesn't work. You don't have to enable people, but tough love doesn't work. Love works. Love for me and my husband kept my nephew alive for 35 years. And no matter what, I say, regardless of what's going on in your children, in your loved ones, please just love them, because you never know And excuse me if I'm a little emotional, but you never know when they are no longer going to be with us. So I treat every day like it's my last. My friend has this little saying for me. She said she was going to buy me a t-shirt. I'm still waiting, that says, if you want the truth, come speak to me. Because I'm not afraid to speak the truth. I'm not afraid to talk to the pregnant woman who comes up to me at the restaurant if she'll listen. I carry my books wherever I go. And if I see a young parent in the airport or on the street, I say, you know, can I give you this book? If I give this to you, would you read it? Knowing that one day it might save your child's life. I haven't had anybody turn me away. I have had people look at me like I'm a little crazy, but that's me being one of God's disciples. And I feel like he has a purpose for me, even in the most tragic times. And right now is probably the worst thing I've ever dealt with. I lost a son. You know, I raised my nephew as my own. And
Tracy, I want to ask you, as we bring this in for a landing, I want to ask you if you would consider at least one more episode. I really think I can sense far more than just one. How is it we can, I'll use the term balance, offer love, not tough love, but let's say work with, and maybe the expression, you're certainly qualified to ask, to respond to this. If you've met one person who is autistic, you have met only one person. It may be everyone is different, and we need to learn about, and again, I use the term adapt to. And if what I'm thinking is correct, Tracy, would you be willing to come back for another episode to help us learn about and use love, not tough love? And there's another term that Marty and I use frequently, accept and go forward with. Would you, I'm just, gosh, I have a whole thought of things we can cover. Would you consider coming back with us again?
I would love that.
I want to encourage our listeners, before they come back for a second and multiple episodes, read your book, Warrior Mom, and learn through that. And with that, we can maybe ask intelligent questions after we have learned. Tracy, my goodness, thank you so much. I'm going to use the term for persevering as a loving mom to learn about and help us to learn as well.
Yes, and if anybody ever has any questions, they can reach out to me at info@warriormom.org, and warriormom.org is my website. They can get a signed hardcover copy. If not, my books are sold anywhere online. They're in some Barnes and Noble, but it's just the soft cover. If you want the hardcover and a signed one, you go through the website and I drop ship it to you. Also for the conference, if anybody is interested in, you know, parents, caregivers, even doctors and medical professionals, because we offer continuing medical education credits. If they want to attend the conference, they can go to autismhealth, HEALTH.com, and they can get more information on that.
Great. Tracy, thank you so much for sharing so far what you have. We look forward to continue our learning and dialogue with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you.
We appreciate having the opportunity to share our and our guests' life's experiences with you.
The Cooper Culture advances organizations to achieve and sustain high retention rates, connected communication, and trust through personality insights and principled leadership. You can contact us at our website, thecooperculture.com, and you can contact us directly at ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, Marty, @thecooperculture.com. We work with you to help assess aspects of your culture to advance the environment and people to their best performance. We do that through our staff of certified personal performance coaches, leadership trainers, keynote speakers, and DISC personality behavior experts. You can book a speaking engagement directly through our website by contacting us at ron@thecooperculture.com. We look forward to sharing our life experiences with you, some of which are profound, some of which are pretty funny. Some of those life experiences are ones we'll never do that again because we've been through stuff. We truly look forward to working with you, speaking with you, helping advance you in any way that we can.